Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about class and style manipulation and the proper way to accomplish that using the DOM. So let's get at it. I already have my HTML page and my JavaScript loaded for this video. We're going to focus in on the JavaScript. And again, I've cleared it all out and I got my notes. So let's go ahead and start to look at this. First of all, I'm going to come back to this tailwind statement here in a little bit. I'm just going to push this all the way down at the very bottom because for now that's where it's going to be at. And from the previous video, we covered this already. So in the previous video, we already covered these commands on how to select different elements. And what I've selected is I've selected the TR, the Google TR, the price TD, and the change. Let's go ahead and refresh this and we can hover over those and you can see where that. So that's the Google TR. That's the price TD, which is element number 3 in that child. So the third TD in there. And then we have the changed TD, so the percent change. And that's the second to the last element. So there's really two things here. We're talking about the classes first, and you can see that this has a bunch of Tailwind classes on it. Border-B, hover, those are all Tailwind classes. And we'll talk about direct style manipulation. We'll talk about when you should lean one way or the other. Should you use CSS classes or do you want to directly use styles? Okay, so the very first thing is we're going to talk about CSS classes and modifying them. And again, the DOM provides the API so that we can do this easily. So for example, I'm going to start off by just console logging out the class list that's on our Google TR. So you can see when we get back, we get this DOM token list object that it really is an array. It has 3 elements here. It has the 3 different Tailwind classes that are part of the DOM here. So border-B. So it's been parsed, right? So it was a string and you can see the value. Here's the string. It's been parsed and you can see it gives us access to the individual array elements here. But more than that, class list, this object gives us methods that we can use to, for example, add a class. So let's just add a test class in here and then we'll have to relog out our list. Let's go ahead and refresh that. So now you can see before we had just these 3 and now we have a 4th. And now you can see our test-class is now part of our classes. And just like we can add a class, you can do the same thing and we can remove a class. So to remove the class we just added, we can just use the remove method and provide that class name. So when I log it out again, we'll see that that class now should be gone. So I started with 3, I added the class, I got 4, and now I'm back to 3, and you can see that that test class is no longer part of our class list. And because you have access to the class list, you can write logic based upon there. So for example, here, we have an if statement. So if the change TD, so that's this TD right here, we can see it right there. If that class list contains text-red-600, which it does, and then we're going to toggle in a hidden class. And so what toggle in, this will change it from if it was there, then it'll remove it. And if it wasn't there, it'll add the class. So that's what toggle method does. So if I refresh this, you can see that the Google TR now has disappeared because that change class had this text-red-600. And you can see that the Google TR now has the hidden. One thing I will point out that while we're here is, you notice I didn't reprint this Google TR. This is the original console log that's up here. And the reason that is because this query selector returns an element, and that element is dynamic, and it'll react to and show you any updates that happen in the future. So down here somewhere in our code, this is where I added the hidden class. I didn't re-log out the TR, but you can see that the hidden class is now in my variable up here. So that is a way of modifying the CSS classes. Let's talk about styles directly. We can directly manipulate the CSS styles, and let's take a look at the form button, which is the add stock button here. So we're going to select it first, form, and then the first button in that form, which is only one button in this form. Let's go ahead and console log out the style that we see. And so we selected the button. As I hover over, you can see it in the DOM up there. And then here's the style. This is all the styles that are associated with that button. And there's quite a few of them, but we can set them now. So as an example, let's just really mess with that button style. Let's say that we're going to set the background color to red. We're going to set the font size to 48 pixels. We're going to transform the text, so it's camel case here, to all uppercase. And then we're going to put a 3-pixel solid blue border around it. I'm not setting a class to set these styles. I'm directly manipulating the styles themselves. So let's go and refresh our page and let's see our pretty button. So now I've added the stock, it's all uppercase, background's red, and I got that blue border. So when should you directly modify the style or add a CSS class? In general, I think it falls under whether or not this is part of your theme. So for example, if this button, how it looks right now, is your theme and every single button in your whole project needs to look like this button. So manipulating it this way, you're gonna have to add that style to every single button. So now imagine that you have a page with multiple buttons, or maybe multiple pages with multiple buttons. And now your marketing department has come in and said, hey, this red color, it's gotta be a green. We need green in there. To make that change now, you're gonna have to go to every button instance and make that change. And if there's 100 buttons, that's 100 changes. However, if you created a CSS class that had all these styles encapsulated in it, you'd have one place to go make those changes. You would just go and make the change from red to green. So it really depends upon whether this is part of your theme. If this is something that's going to occur more than once, I would recommend go ahead and make it a CSS class. Let's get to themes here. So right now I'm using Tailwinds. Tailwind does have this nice feature where you can have attributes that are dark mode or light mode, and we can switch between different themes. And I've already prepped this page a little bit. I've added this other element, which is right here, and you can see it in the upper hand corner. It's selected. So it's a div that has an input element that is hidden, and it has a label that's part of that, and then it has two SVGs. One is hidden and one is shown. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this thing and we're going to interact with it. We're going to click it and switch it from light mode to dark mode. And I've already set this page up so that it's ready for dark mode. So as an example, here, this element, it has a dark mode background color, which is gray-800, and it has a light mode color, which is -white. And so when we toggle from dark to white, Tailwinds will automatically toggle and select the correct classes that we need here. So let's make this work. So first of all, I'm going to get access to that switch. And if I just console log out the mode switch, let's see what we get handled to here. I'm going to refresh this page, and you can see that I get access to that hidden input element, which is directly tied to this because this is the label for that input element. So when I click this, it'll go checked or not checked. So that's the element. I can get whether we're currently in the dark mode or not by looking at whether or not this document contains a class called dark. And we're going to use that in a second here. And if we are in dark mode, then we're going to go ahead and take this query element, which is an input. It's a checkbox, so we're going to go ahead and check it just to indicate that we are in the dark mode. And then the next thing is we're going to add an event listener. So anytime I change that checkbox, I check it or uncheck it, then we're going to run this bit of code. We're going to get whether it's checked, and if it's checked, I'm going to add this dark class, which is what we tried to find here, to the document. Otherwise, we're going to remove that dark class. So given this, the only other thing I have to do now is I have to tell Tailwinds that we're going to start looking at the class and look for this dark attribute. So I'm going to refresh this page, and right now it looks like nothing's really changed. But if I then click it, you can see that we've switched over into our dark mode. And so now the user can toggle the theme by just clicking which they prefer. Do they prefer dark mode or they prefer the light mode? And this all ties into our ability to change classes. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we are going to dive harder into this ability to add listeners for events. So we'll see you next time.